All right, guys. So, what is our covenant with God, right? What is it that we're supposed to do and not supposed to do? Now, in this part, what we're going to do is we're going to cover the Ten Commandments, okay? And then in another one, we're going to cover the sexual sins and so on, so that we understand what our covenant with God really is, okay? So, God gave us commandments just like He did with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, okay? And how we sin is by breaking those commandments. Okay. God commands us to do certain things. Now, God is the one being that created this whole universe, right? That we're in. He's the one that exists outside of time and space, that created this time and space. Nothing comes from nothing, everything comes from something, right? And can be traced back to something. See, science wants you to believe in the Big Bang, right? But they can't explain how it happened. You know, they can't explain what's behind that, right? Whereas Christianity, we can. So God, who seeded us, who put us on this planet, okay, gave us commandments to go by. Okay? So these are his rules, all right? So in this part, we're going to cover the Ten Commandments, which is Exodus 20. And then we'll get into Leviticus 18, which is sexual sin. And we'll get into some other stuff too, so that we understand what we're supposed to be doing and not to do. Okay? Because our covenant with God is our relationship with God. And when we disobey God, we are breaking our covenant with Him, and therefore forming a covenant with Satan, with Lucifer, right? With the demons. So what we want to be doing is making the world a better place by obeying God's commandments. Okay? Sadly, we live in a world right now that has fallen away from God. Okay? And while there's still breath in my lungs, I'm going to teach you about God and help you to come to Him. Okay? So, chapter 20. Hopefully, you guys can hear me here well. Let me put it up here like this. Let's try it this way. Now, we were reading Genesis, so we weren't that far away from this. You know what I mean? But you guys want the New Testament too, so that's what we're doing. Okay? The Ten Commandments. Then God delivered all these commandments. I, the Lord, am your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, that place of slavery. You shall not have other gods besides me. Right there, we're not to have other gods. Okay? This is why we can't go by somebody else's religious beliefs, right? Or cultural beliefs, right? We don't do that. We can't. Because by doing that, then you're breaking that commandment right there, right? It's not about respecting other people's cultures and other people's beliefs. That's a lie. That's told to you by the secular world because they don't have a relationship with the one true God, right? So God right off the bat is saying, I am the only God. You are not to have other gods before me, okay? You shall not carve idols for yourself in the shape of anything in the sky above, or the earth below, or in the waters beneath the earth. Okay? So the next one is we're not allowed to have engraven images of the things in heaven or in hell. That's what that's saying. So we're not to know what demons look like. We're not to know what the devil looks like. We're not to know what angels look like or God looks like unless it's in the Bible and it tells us what they look like. Okay? This way, when they do show up, we know what they are by design because the Bible tells us what they are. So, for example, the aliens that you see in the sky, right? How do we know what they are? Because there's only one of two interdimensional beings, and that's either angels or demons. Okay? It's either from heaven or from hell. So, which one is it? Well, you only know if you know the Bible, okay? Because the Bible tells you. So all these things you see in movies and in TV shows is breaking the second commandment. When they make demons look like they have wings and tails and all this other stuff and horns and stuff, and they make it ridiculous, or they mock God and make him look like an old man in the clouds kind of thing. That's breaking your second commandment right there. Okay? All right? You shall not bow down before them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, God inflicting punishment for their father's wickedness on the children of those who hate me, down to the third and fourth generation, but bestowing mercy down to the thousandth generation on the children of those who love me and keep my commandments. So God favors those who keeps the commandments, and he casts delusions onto those who don't. Okay? You shall not take the name of your Lord, your God, in vain, for the Lord will not leave unpunished him who takes his name in vain. Now, this is where we learn that swearing is wrong. Okay? What vain means is that you did it by accident. We're doing it deliberately. When you do OMG, but you actually say what those letters mean, or you use Jesus' name, when you use God's name in vain, when you use it as a form of profanity or cussing, that's what that means. Now, doing it by accident is saying that's what vain means, is by accident, right? We're doing it deliberately. So we're breaking that commandment too, right? And this also tells us that we're not allowed to swear at all. Because that's what this is talking about, is profanity and cussing, right? A lot of you don't believe what I say. Everything's right here in the Bible, and all you got to do is pick it up and read, you know. So we're not allowed to swear at all, and especially when it comes to God's name and Jesus' name, things that are holy. Okay, we're not allowed to cuss and swear. All right. Remember to keep holy the Sabbath day. So that would be the seventh day, which would be Sunday. Okay. 6 days you may labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. No work may be done then either by you, or your son or daughter, or your male or female slave, or your beast, or the alien who lives with you. In 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, and the sea, and all that is in them. But on the seventh day he rested. That is why the Lord has blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. So we are to not do anything, to toil at all, right? We're not allowed to get other people to work for us, to do things for us. We're not supposed to do anything on the Sabbath day, which is the holy day, okay? God did everything that he did in 6 days. Now understand what it means technically by 6 days. It's not what we think. God judges, a day by 1,000 years. Okay, and we know this because on the day that Adam ate from the apple, from the tree of knowledge, God said that day you shall surely die. So he didn't die on that day. He lived to be 960 years old, Adam. Okay, so then Adam died at 960. Okay, so you see, we're actually living shorter lives, not longer lives. Okay, we're decreasing. We're not getting better. We're getting worse. Because God is punishing us for our sins, okay? So we are to obey the Sabbath day, okay? Honor your father and your mother, that you may have a long life in the land which the Lord your God is giving you. So we're to honor and obey our parents, okay? We're not to disobey them. The only time that we're allowed to disobey them is if they go against God. If they're doing something that's ungodly, okay? We are to honor them. That means we listen to them, we respect them, we don't swear at them, we don't, do bad things towards them, okay? There's an old saying, respect your elders. That comes from the Bible. That's what this is talking about, right? Respecting your parents, respecting your grandparents, okay? All right? You shall not kill. Now, there's a lot of people here that are trying to be smart about this one, right? And they're like, well, we kill cows and that too. No. God is being specific about this. We are not allowed to kill a human being. God allows us to kill animals because all throughout the book, yeah, we kill animals, right? But we also killed wildlife, we kill fish, we whatever. Okay, we're allowed to eat the fruit, we're allowed to eat animals and that sort of thing. Okay, in the beginning we just ate fruit, but then later on we started to eat animals because God allowed it. Okay, right? But in the Garden of Eden there was only fruit, and that's all we had to eat was fruit, which is actually more healthier for you. But we're not allowed to kill. I got to plug in my laptop here soon, so I'm just getting this ready here. I should plug it in now anyway. It's sitting at 14%. I think I will anyway, just because, this way I don't lose you guys. So we're not allowed to kill. That means we're not allowed to kill another human being. Lots of people want to say, oh, we can do things in self-defense. No, that's according to man's law, not God's law. Okay? We are to abide by God's laws, God's commandments, okay? Not by the laws of man, but by the laws of God are we to live our lives, right? Okay? So we are not allowed to kill. Now, some people are going to say, well, in my Bible it says you're not allowed to murder. Okay, then let's look at it contextually. What is the Bible saying? That you're still not allowed to kill. Why? Because the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Okay? So only God can give life. So only God is allowed to take that life. Okay? So we're not allowed to have the death penalty. We're not allowed to have medical assistance in dying or the suicide machine or anything like that. Okay? We're to respect human life because humans are different than every other animal out there. Okay? And the fact that God created us in his own image, which means he put a soul into us, and he made us very special and unique because we're made exactly in accordance to God. Okay? So in a sense, we're kind of like a spitting image of God, a version of him, right? Okay? And the thing is that he put a soul into us. He gives us a guardian angel to watch over us, okay? So every single human being at the moment of conception has a soul in him, okay? And that is what makes us unique from every other species out there on the planet, because we're the only ones with a soul. And you notice that God does not talk about any other planets having life. He only talks about Earth, and that's it. And this is how we know that human beings only exist here, and only here, nowhere else. Okay? There's a lot of lies that's being taught to you by secular society, including that you came from monkeys. And that's a lie. God told you right here in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, when we read it, that God seeded you here. Okay? All right? So you shall not kill. So you're not allowed to kill another human being, period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Okay? God does not make exceptions to the rules. Okay? These are his commandments. You keep them, you're in good favor. You don't, he'll condemn you. Literally. He takes this very seriously, and we need to too. All right? You shall not commit adultery. So Jesus even said that if you look with lust in your eyes upon another woman, you've already committed the sin of adultery in your heart. That's how serious this is, okay? We're not allowed to look at other people with sex in our eye, okay? We're not supposed to desire them. We can be friends with them. We can court them to date them to find out if they're compatible. Because what God wants us to do is go out there and find our wife or our husband. Okay? And that's a straight biological male and female. So that we can get married, so we can have children and we can have offspring. Okay? So we're not allowed to commit adultery, which is sexual sin. Okay? You shall not steal. So again, God gives us a commandment: don't steal. But just like in the Garden of Eden, and I want to use video games as an example with this, okay? Just like in the Garden of Eden, right? What happened there? God gave a commandment, just one. Don't eat from the tree of knowledge, okay? What did Eve do? Well, what did the snake say to Eve? The snake said, did he say you couldn't eat from the trees in the garden? Now, the snake, which is Satan, turned a commandment from God into a question. You see how manipulative Lucifer is, right? And that's what he did, is that he twisted the words of what God said, formed it, instead of a commandment, as being a question mark. Right? And this is how deceptive the devil is. And you see the devil doing his stuff right now. And he's cooking. Okay? All right? So, you're not allowed to steal. Now, I want to share a little story with a young man I saw on YouTube, okay? I'm really proud of, actually. Must have been about 15, 16 years old, okay? Him and his friend were playing a different version of Monopoly than what I grew up with, okay? And in that board game, the guy got a card that said he can steal anybody else's property, okay? Now it's just the two of them playing. He put it down with the sermon and he said, I don't feel right about this because it says in the Bible we're not allowed to steal. Now he made a video about this on YouTube. You can find it, okay? And if you go on my Christian playlist, you'll find it. But the thing is that he put the card down and they talked about it and they decided not to play Monopoly anymore. Now I tell you, with Skyrim, okay, in there you got the Thieves Guild. And in there you're encouraged to steal. So understand, the demons influence video game developers, okay, to influence you to steal. God didn't say how you do it. God just said, just don't do it. He gave you a commandment. Don't do this, right? But you go and you do it in a video game and you think it has no consequence, but it has spiritual consequence. Because spiritually, you really did steal. Because God gave you a commandment not to steal, but you went and stole in a video game. You see? And this is how sin starts to become normalized. Okay? So we're not allowed to steal. We're not allowed to kill. We're not allowed to swear. We're not allowed to cuss. Okay? And let's keep going on here. Okay? You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. This means you're not to lie. So we're not allowed to lie. That's what false witness means, is lying. Okay? So we're not allowed to lie. Now, you notice that people go, well, you know, it's okay if you tell a white lie. There's no harm in that. So an example of that would be like a white lie according to society is like there's a surprise birthday party for a friend of yours, right? And they ask you, are you throwing a surprise birthday party? And you say no, but you know that you really are because you want to surprise them. That's a white lie. That's still lying. You see? You see how society takes something that is wrong because God gave you a commandment and twists it, just like Lucifer, the snake, did in the Garden of Eden with Eve, right? And that's exactly what's going on here in our society nowadays, is that no one's teaching you this stuff so that you can learn, right? It doesn't matter how you break these commandments. What matters is that you break the commandments, because when you do, this is your covenant with God. This is how God knows you, okay? This is extremely important, okay? Because doing these things is why we're in the boat we're in to begin with. So we're not allowed to lie, okay? You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor his male or female slave, nor his ox or his ass, nor anything else belonging to him. And then it gets into the fear of God, and that's something we don't have anymore, is the fear of God. Those are the Ten Commandments, okay? And then Jesus added in more for us, okay? He reaffirms these in the New Testament. But then he also adds in to turn the other cheek. So we're not allowed to defend ourselves. A lot of people out there will disagree with that, but that's the truth. When you read the New Testament, you understand that Jesus Christ said, when someone hits you on one side, turn the other side, okay? Jesus also said that we are to love our enemies. We're not loving our enemies if we're beating them up. We're not loving our enemies if we're going to war with them. That is left up to God to do. That's what Armageddon's all about, okay? Jesus wants give everybody a chance. God wants to give everybody a chance to get right with him, to come to him. And this is how he knows that you've come to him, because you're obeying his commandments. Understand, God gives a commandment. If secular society tells you anything different, if law enforcement tells you anything different, if anybody tells you anything different, that's why Jesus said in the New Testament, you will go to jail for me. And you will die for me, because the world will hate you because it hated me first. You see, this is how the New Testament and the Old Testament relates to each other, right? Because God gives us commandments, and so did Jesus Christ. And we are to follow those commandments. That's how we know we have a relationship with God. That's how we know we have a relationship with Jesus Christ. And these are things that people don't talk about anymore that we need to do. We need to go back to the basics. We need to understand the basics. What's our relationship with God? How do we know that we have a relationship with God? How do we know that we have a relationship with Jesus Christ? It's all about the commandments and listening to them and obeying them to the letter, literally, okay? So, those are the 10 Commandments, with a few extras that Jesus threw in on top of it, okay? But then we have sexual sin, which is Leviticus 18, which we'll cover in a separate video, okay? All of this has to do with listening to God's commandments, okay? If we disobey God's commandments, we're breaking our covenant with God. When we break our covenant with God, that's what's called sin, okay? So sin is not listening to God's commandments. Sin is not obeying God's commandments. Sin is going against God's commandments and do as thy will, which is exactly what Lucifer did, which is exactly what he wants you to do. See, he doesn't want you to know the truth. He doesn't want you to hear the truth. You got lawmakers nowadays, especially here in Canada, that are making laws and have made laws to ban this kind of stuff because they hate God, okay? And we're told, no, you need to rise up and teach people this. Remember, I made a video, okay, about our purpose. Watch it. What's the meaning of life? Watch it, okay? I'm uploading it right now. So the meaning of life is purpose. This is God's covenant with us. And we need to pay attention to this, okay? Because this is how we know we have a relationship with God. See, the whole Bible itself is literally God talking to you. The book of Psalms is you talking to God, because those are prayers, okay? All right? So it's important that we understand how we have a relationship with God. That's the commandments, by keeping them. If we break these, we're breaking our covenant with God. We no longer have a relationship with God. If you want to have a relationship with God, you've got to respect the commandments and obey them, okay? And Jesus reaffirmed these in the New Testament, and he also added in a few other ones too, like I shared with you already, okay? That's how you know you have a relationship with God and Jesus Christ. Because if you don't keep that covenant, then you don't have a relationship with the one true God, okay? You broke that relationship. You severed your ties with him. So you need to always be mindful of that. So what you should do is take a piece of paper or something and put it on your fridge door with the commandments. Put it somewhere where you're going to see it every day, okay? And be mindful of it. Because sadly, we live in a society that's normalized profanity and cussing. It's gotten into our movies, our TV shows, our music, and it's even blaspheming God himself and Jesus by using their names as a swear word too. And we're told we're not to do that. God takes sin so seriously, for the wages of sin is death. God readies his bow and sharpens his sword for the sinner who doesn't repent. Verbatim in the Bible, okay? So, God takes sin seriously. So seriously that he's going to destroy not just the body, but the soul as well. Okay? He's not just going to send you to hell. He can permanently destroy you if he wants to. All right? He's God. He can do whatever he wants to do. He created you. He put you here by design. You either obey him or you don't. That's why Lucifer was kicked out of heaven and the other 198 angels. Because those 200 angels altogether fell because they disobeyed God and it went against his commandments. Okay? He gave angels a specific job to do. Some of them are guardians, like St. Michael. He gives us the armor of God, and stuff like that, right? So we need to listen to God and pay attention to our covenant with him, which is through Jesus Christ, which reaffirms the 10 Commandments, sexual sin, and a few other things, okay? And Jesus threw in some more things to love even your enemies. All right? We're not allowed to act in self-defense by harming another person. God is against violence. He's against that. Okay? He's not for it. So people, they don't use discernment when they read the Bible, right? And they go, it says thou shalt not murder, not kill. No, my Bible says kill. Yours says murder. Well, then you look at it contextually. What's God getting at? God's saying you're not allowed to take a human life. That's what he's trying to tell you. Right? Just because you change the wording doesn't change the context. And that's what you always got to be focused on, is the context. What is God telling me to do with my life? How does God want me to live? What am I supposed to do? How do I serve him? Right? How do I know I have a relationship with God? How do I know I have a spot in heaven? If you keep your covenant with God, he's going to allow you to live a long, fruitful life. If you don't keep your covenant with God, he can take you at any time. Be glad that he allows you to be alive today, because today is your chance to get right with God by following his commandments. That's how you have a relationship with him. How you talk to him is through prayer, or talking to him like you would a normal person. Obeying his commandments is how you have a relationship with him. Okay? All right? And yes, you can hear it. You can hear voices. It's not mental illness. It's God talking to you, or demons for that matter. If it's something healthy and good, it comes from God. If it's not, it comes from Satan. So you need to know that, okay? And you have power and authority. So you just say with authority, with conviction, you say, get behind me, Satan. Okay? We know this because it's in the Bible too. The Bible is what prepares you for the next life, but also is what you're supposed to be doing in this life. So I'm surprised a lot of people don't know about the Bible. That's why I'm here, to teach you, okay, to help you. All right, so that's your covenant with God, and that's how you know you have a covenant with God. Are you keeping his commandments? Because if you're constantly breaking them, you're not keeping his commandments, you don't have a relationship with God. You want to have a relationship with God, get right with the commandments, okay? All right, thanks a lot, guys. The next up, we'll cover sexual sin, okay? All right, thanks.